Saturday morning, and I want to say thank you to Lisa. I've known Lisa for a long time. I won't say how long, or it's going to date us, but she has just been an incredible catalyst for bringing you together and activating what I think is going to be a movement that we're seeing all across our Eastern Panhandle and into places like Baltimore. Let me just share a little bit about what I've been doing. I've pastored churches, started churches all over the Mid-Atlantic, and last year just got really motivated to try to address things in my life and in other people's lives that would actually live beyond me. And so I decided to leave out. I've been in Baltimore for 4 years. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Baltimore. You've probably been to the Inner Harbor. You probably saw the ships. You've probably been to a Ravens game or an Orioles game, but you've not been to Baltimore until you've been to West Side. And I spent 4 years of my life on the West Side of Baltimore. First thing I did was get with the mayor and the police commissioner and all the powers that be, the government officials. I said, why do we have such a huge drug problem in Baltimore? And they said, because it's the economic salvation of our city. That was their response. Drugs are a $6 billion industry in Baltimore. And the mayor told me that if the drug industry went away, the entire city would collapse. So the lawyers and the doctors and the politicians all have a vested interest in keeping this thing going. So don't think this is just I got on Percocet because I went to the dentist, got my wisdom teeth pulled, and now I'm addicted. This is an economic engine that is driving a lot of our country right now. And a lot of people don't talk about that, but that's the reality. And I can take you to places in Baltimore where they will tell you that is exactly what is driving our country. So I've spent 4 years just dealing with people, walking streets, trying to find out what in the world is going on that has caused this. Because I don't know, how many of you know somebody that has been or is addicted to some kind of drug? Just raise your hand, okay? How many of you know someone that has died because of accidental overdose? Do you realize that 10 years ago, only 10 years ago, only 1 or 2 of you would have raised your hand? Well, the problem has been going on, like my brother said, since antiquity. It's dramatically accelerated just in the last decade. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I want to give you what I think is the real reason. Because walking the streets of Baltimore, being a pastor for a long time, dealing with people, hearing their hearts, trying to help people get beyond where they are, trying to move people into a new direction, I've just discovered that the root of the problem really is spiritual. Because God made us for himself. That's what I've discovered. And I'm not here to preach to you. You're going to get that tomorrow. But I am here to tell you that if you can just get your head around the fact that all this stuff that we're dealing with has a core issue in our identity and how God made us. And so when I began to discover this in Baltimore, I didn't go for the people and try to talk with them about, why did you get addicted? What's going on? What happened to your life? Your mama dropped you when you were a baby, whatever the thing may be. I just wanted to find out people that had not gotten addicted to drugs that lived in West Baltimore. Because in West Baltimore, the average age of a grandmother is 34. And so the industry there is to put your 8 or 9 year old grandson or granddaughter, mainly grandsons, out on the corner and have them sell drugs because that keeps the economy going. I mean, welfare is not enough. 70% of the people don't have a job. People won't hire them. Under Armour, which is the driving force right now in Baltimore, is not going to the West Side trying to find people to work. It's hiring people that look like me. And just a little younger, maybe. And so what we've got is a situation where I just begin to try to discover what got people off track. Because I really believe that, I think of a person like Joy. Joy was raised in a home that had great values. She went out, as my brother that was just sharing a few moments ago, just went out and got into the party lifestyle, started getting on drugs, eventually just became an addict, started selling her body. And Joy had been raped, by the time I met her, she'd been raped 29 times. 29 times. Now, she didn't set out to do that, but at the root of her problem is that she became addicted, and she became almost like driven to move into a different lifestyle simply because she had lost who she was. She'd lost who God had made her to be. And I think that the reason we get off track, folks, is simply this. And it's not rocket science. I mean, I've got a whole lot of notes here. I can tell you about dopamine and how our brain rewires and gets us addicted and why the brain craves all this stuff. And there's medical people that can discuss this a lot better than I can. But the real thing is that we really get away from how God built us and designed us to live our life. And I don't know how many of you follow Jesus, or maybe you don't follow Jesus. I deal with people all over the map that do that. But when we discover that the real root of it and what's in Joy's life is that she had to rediscover and reprogram her brain and her soul to get back to her original design that God had made her to be. And so we started talking to Joy. and we got her in some treatment, and we got her into supportive relationships. Because guys, we can go through treatment programs all we want to, but if we don't change who our friends are, who the supportive networks and relationships are, they're just going to fall back in. In fact, most secular programs, they see a 92% rate of people going back into drugs once they get out of the treatment center. That's why you see all these celebrities that, go through these high-priced recovery treatment centers, where it's like almost living in heaven. And they go out, and then a week later, they're addicted to the same thing they started with because they don't change their friendships. So I think the real issue that we're going to be looking at today, that's why I commend just Porky Jones, who's been a friend of mine for a long time, and Cosby, who's going to come after me and talk with you about some from the medical side and me coming from the spiritual side, is simply this. We've got to understand it is a spiritual issue at its root. We get lost of who God really made us to be in the very beginning, and somewhere we get off track. And the only way to reprogram that is to get back onto truth, to get people back into believing who God made them to be. I think of the story in John where the father comes, he has a son, and his son has epilepsy, and he constantly is throwing himself in the fire and hurting himself. And the father says, I just don't know what to do with this guy. I mean, can you do anything? And Jesus just says, well, just believe. And the father says a very honest question. He says, well, I do believe, but help my unbelief. And Jesus helped him to get the bridge, to get back into understanding who he really made his son to be in the very beginning. The father didn't know what to do. And a lot of us don't know what to do when it comes to this drug problem and this opioid crisis and all this craziness going on in our world today. But guys, we got to understand that God built us with an identity that is only found and only secure and only works if it's found in him. It only happens, secondly, as we find supportive relationships. That people that bring life into our life. People that support us, not in our drug habit, but support us to understand and then confront us about, here's some things you got to do, and I'm going to hold you accountable to this. And people aren't going to change if they just hang around the same people and live in the same community and just, kind of get into the environments that they work. We got to pull them out of that. And the only way we do that is through getting new, healthy relationships that give them life. I work in Delaware right now 3 days a week with a bunch of people that are in recovery, and they're a hoot, man. They're honest, they're transparent, they're fun to be around. I find a lot of church people just lie to you, and they just make you feel like that they're really better than they are. I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this 40 years, so I can talk about us, okay? And some of the meanest people I've met in my life are church people. Some of the most honest people I've met. Y'all are laughing, so it must be true, right? And some of the greatest people I've met are people that are going through recovery. And so on Tuesday nights we do Celebrate Recovery. And I met this guy by the name of Mike. And Mike was a businessman with Bank of America. And he got on Percocet. Had some surgery, got on Percocet. And eventually, he wanted to feel like he felt when he was on Percocet. So he continued to try to find other avenues. And those avenues weren't always legal avenues. And he lost his job with Bank of America. But he found out that he had an identity that had been warped, as my brother said a moment ago, by sin. And he rediscovered that he could find a new identity and how God really made him in the very beginning by discovering Jesus. And today Mike leads CR, Celebrate Recovery, in the Newcastle area of Delaware, just across the bay from New Jersey, a rough and tough neighborhood. I don't know why God always has put me in rough and tough neighborhoods, Baltimore, now Newcastle. But those people there, when they really get to the understanding that they can allow another person to speak into their life and just slap them upside the head if they need to be, metaphorically speaking, and tell them the truth about themselves and give them life, those people change. And sometimes they have little relapses. We all know that. But guys, I'm just telling you that we've got to find that this is where the church can come in. Let me just say this about church. Church isn't Sunday morning, sing 3 songs, do a cute little offertory, and preacher preaches and gives an invitation, and we all feel good, and we try to beat the Methodists to the Golden Corral. That's not church, okay? I mean, I've done that for 40 years, got paid to do that. But that's not church. Church is a life-giving environment where people that only God could love, for some of them, come together and discover new life. And I hope your church, if you go to church, is like that. If it's not, do something that will get it moving that direction. We just got to be, I guess what it really comes down to is, guys, we've got to understand where the root of the problem is, create places where people can be honest with one another. And that's why last year, I started this to tell you, last year I decided to kind of leave what I was doing, a 6-figure income and great benefits and just flying all over the country speaking with an agency called NAM, and just go out on my own and do what I'm doing today. Talk to churches and and catalyze new movements within geographical areas around the Mid-Atlantic where we can see life take place. And I do this simply because I believe that there's hope. I believe that what you're doing, what Cosby is doing, what Porky is doing, and what Lisa is doing, and many others of you I haven't even met yet, that there is hope. And if there wasn't hope, I wouldn't be standing here today. If there wasn't hope, I'd be doing something else. If there wasn't hope, I'd give up. If there wasn't hope, I may put a gun in my mouth. You know, I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Because we've got to have hope that we can make a difference. We've got to have the knowledge that we've got a power inside of us. I told somebody the other day, you realize that the same Holy Spirit lives in you that lived in Billy Graham. The same Holy Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives inside of you. You've got a power inside of you to make a difference in somebody's life. And so I want to encourage you to take a person like Joy that is now, I told you about her life. Today, Joy is a greeter in one of my gatherings that I have and is serving God and is changed and is clean and is not doing all the things she was doing before. And she's healed and she's in her right mind and she's making an impact among the community where she lives, because that's what God does when he gets a hold of a person's life and changes their identity. Let me tell you about one more story. There's another guy by the name of Mike. And so I do these gatherings all over the Mid-Atlantic and several in the Eastern Panhandle. They're little smaller spiritual venues. I'm loving it. It's a lot more fun than doing church. And so we just started this group about 4 or 5 weeks ago. So Mike comes to me after I spoke his first time there. This is like 3 weeks ago. And he goes, hey man, can I talk to you as you go out to your car? He's helping me take my stuff out of the car. I said, sure man, follow me. And he handed me a bag. Which just say it's something I hadn't seen since the 1960s, which were a great decade. And, can't remember much of it, but it was a great decade. And he said, man, I got to get off this stuff. And I'm on King Street, okay? And my son is a cop in Martinsburg. And I'm thinking at any minute he's going to drive by, see somebody handing a plastic bag. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Some of you are too church. You have no idea what I'm talking about. And he said, man, I got to get my life right. My wife's ready to leave me. My kids hate me. I've lost all my friends. And I said, well, man, you got this. I know this isn't the only bag you got because I've learned enough working with addicts. This isn't the only bag you got. So he says, man, come out to my garage. I got lots of it out here. And so we find all these little corners of nooks and crannies he'd been hiding it from his wife. Because see, here's what happens. When you're in addiction, you learn how to lie. You become an expert at lying. That's why you can't trust an addict. Okay? Because they'll lie their pants off. Okay? And so we went to every little nook and cranny and got all of his drugs. We got rid of them. I won't tell you how, but we got rid of them. And so when I saw him, I've been traveling for 3 weeks. I saw him Tuesday night. I come in the door and he's already there and he holds up his hand like this. And I wasn't getting it yet. He goes, 3 weeks. 3 weeks, dude, I've been clean. 3 weeks I haven't gone back. 3 weeks. It was like he was having a birthday party, you know? But when you're an addict and you have not used for 3 days or 3 weeks or for some 3 hours, then that's something to celebrate. That's something to get fired up about. And the reason that Mike is making it is only this, and I'll close here. It's because he rediscovered his identity. That's what the church can do. We can help people rediscover their true identity. And then secondly, we pulled him into life-giving, supportive relationships. We got him out of all the stupid relationships, all the people that were stealing from him and taking from him. We got him out of that. We got him out of the environment that he was in, and we got him into some treatment. And that's what you can do here. You can bind yourselves together and help create an Eastern Panhandle treatment center. That's another thing you can do. But we did all those things, and for 3 weeks, he's been clean. You see, that's just one life. But just think if every one of us just wins one life back to true life, the difference you can make in this community. I want to challenge you to go out and do that this week. Thank you.